a little bit about me for those who have not been members with me and customers of mine who are already familiar with me. I see a lot of members that I've had working relationships with for almost 15 years now. So I'm happy to see some familiar faces in there. For those of you who are unfamiliar, I went to law school. I worked in county government as a conservator, which is a legal position, sort of a guardian ad litem. And I came to work with Experts.com about 13 years ago. And I've been doing this ever since. So I've been in the expert witness legal technology space for 13 years, a little over 13 years now. So I've had a lot of experience with marketing experts, a lot of experience with marketing platforms for experts, as well as LinkedIn, content creation, a whole variety of these things that we're going to be discussing today. Really the marketing platforms, the content creation, the brokers, LinkedIn, and in-person networking. That's kind of an overview of what we'll be talking about when Dan pops in here. But I think I'm going to go ahead and get started as he may be delayed. And I'll do a brief intro when Dan arrives. Everybody ready? Let's do it. So again, the topics that we're going to be discussing today is sort of a breakdown of a variety of things, and we're going to push through pretty fast on this. So take notes on those things you want to ask us questions about at about the 45 to 1 hour range, because we're going to try and leave about 30 to 45 minutes for questions. So here are the items that we thought were huge items that you need to be aware of for marketing your expert practice. That's the content creation, marketing and advertising platforms, i.e. Experts.com, and a variety of others. Brokers, which is where Dan's expertise comes from. He was the CEO of AMFS, which was a broker. He did that for about 8 or 10 years, so that you get a little idea of he and I are coming from a little different backgrounds on our experience in marketing expertise. LinkedIn, and then we're going to talk about in-person networking, and then there's a whole variety of other stuff, such as website, email marketing, newsletters, which we're going to touch on a little bit, AdWords, webinars, such as the one we're doing today, and speaking engagements. So those are kind of at the end, and if we have time to get to them, because if you don't have a website, I can only say that you should have a website at this point. Email marketing, AdWords, webinars, those things, if we have time to them, we're going to hit them. So let's jump into content creation. Content creation, and I know that people have been made nervous about this by lawyers, and we want to make you less nervous about this going forward. Attorneys have made experts nervous about doing content marketing because they'll say, don't publish anything because it'll cause, they'll use it against you in the future for impeachment purposes. And I get that. I know that that's a risk. So I don't want you saying anything absurd in content creation, but I think there are answers to that. When Dan pops in, we're going to get him to give you some additional answers on this, because he is a practicing lawyer who works with expert witnesses. So he's going to give us a few more questions on or a few more things to do for avoiding this impeachment. So in almost every other industry, they understand the value of content marketing. And I'm going to give you some data here. Don't feel the need to write it down. This is being recorded, but 67% of marketers report that content marketing, this is creating written publications, videos, etc. 67% of that content marketing generates demands and leads. 72% of marketers say that content marketing helps to educate the audience, your audience being lawyers that you'd like to have retain your services. 63% of marketers say it helps build loyalty with existing clients and customers. And we're going to touch on that in the newsletters portion in the content creation, because I want you to remember thinking about staying top of mind with your customers, past and those that you'd like to have as future customers. Okay. Video was the primary form of content being created in 2022, followed by blogs and images or pictures. I know what you're going to say. I don't want to make video of myself, or, you might get a little uncomfortable. With Experts.com, what we've asked members to do who have a premium or above membership, we've asked them to go ahead and make an intro video. Dan Sandman, if you are here, I don't see you by name, but if you are here, please raise your hand so that I can see. Nabil, I see your hand raised. Dan Sandman.
Can you hear me, Nick?
I can hear you.
Well, Nick, I'm sorry. My system decided to have a meltdown just as I was clicking in.
Oh, okay. So that's why you're here as Nabil at the moment.
And Nabil, we have to thank for, I don't know if you can see me because it doesn't seem my camera is activated, but.
No, it's probably doing a workaround. Anyway, Dan, I started because I thought we could do a little intro for you once you got here. I'm glad you're here, but I did a little intro for you. Dan, I explained that you have the background with AMFS and you're a practicing lawyer, and you have an item, and then I was jumping right into some stats on the content creation side. But sure, tell us what your MORE acronym is for marketing your expert services.
While we're chatting here for a minute, you can send me a fresh link and folks will be able to see me. And this is sometimes what happens with technology, but we do our best to get through it, right, Nick?
We're getting through it.
So, hey, it's great to be back, and certainly apologize for the difficulty at my end here. So, and hat goes off to Nick for carrying the ball here with certainly some concerns about the start. But I try to approach marketing and business development from a conceptual sort of approach, and I call it the MORE approach. And it's an acronym. MORE is, M is for media, O is for outreach, R is for relationships equal revenue, lead to revenue, and E is for engagement. And I think as we continue our discussion here, we'll really get an idea of how all that works and how it sort of creates a framework, at least the way I approach marketing. And then I know we're going to break it down into the ways that Nick had discussed just a few moments ago. So,
and I think we do cover all of those in the outline that we created together, Dan. I think we do the media outreach and certainly the relationships. I know we cover all three of those solidly today. Dan, let me pop back in so that I have their attention on the content marketing thing, and then we'll run from there. Does that work for you?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Great. So we were getting into, video was the primary form of content being created in 2022, followed by blogs and then images. And I was telling folks things that they could do if they're uncomfortable being on video is what we've asked them to do on Experts.com for premium members is to do an intro video of them and their expertise and their background. Make it light, make it short, give people that opportunity to see you and put it up on your YouTube page and start there as your first video. Another thing, 73% of marketers, or 73% of those surveyed said that they admit to skimming blogs, while 27% of them consume them thoroughly. Now, I'm going to tell you an answer to this and a reason to do it anyway. Sometimes skimming is good enough to get you to stick in their head and contact you when they need an expert for a particular topic for your area of expertise. So those are just a few data points with which to say content and marketing is incredibly important. And Dan and I would like to get you past that nervousness that attorneys have made, that attorneys have caused experts to be, for this fear of some future impeachment. Dan, your thoughts on some of these examples?
Yeah, and I think that we've got to get past sort of the fear of impeachment and things of that nature when you're doing content marketing, or using it for purposes of business development. You know, so many experts are published, and there's certainly no reason not to use some of those publications in a thoughtful way to establish, you know, I guess the term these days, Nick, is thought leadership.
Yep.
And establishing that thought leadership over time can be really powerful. You know, certainly depending upon what platform you're engaged in, whether, I know we'll talk about LinkedIn later on, or whether you're on website or on Experts.com or other platforms that you just mentioned. You know, sometimes approaching things in a way that involve a hypothetical, or, you know, differentiate the facts from some of the work that, you know, you're actually working on, can help insulate you from some of that concern about crossover or cross-examination or impeachment or things of that nature. I think those can be really, really helpful when you're using published content and trying to distinguish it from what you're using to establish thought leadership.
Right. And I've often brought up to members when I ask them to do articles on Experts.com, because these articles perform. Dan's a member of Experts.com, and I was asking him for his consulting practice, and I was telling him earlier this week that, hey, we need to get you to write a couple of articles, because I know how powerful they are on Experts.com. So you should have ideas for different content for different platforms. So what you post on LinkedIn should be different than what you post on Experts.com, and different from what you post on your website. So you don't have duplicative content, which the search engines really view negatively.
So, and Nick, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
go ahead.
That you are the king of content when it comes to really knowing how to deploy that content. You've helped me immeasurably over the years with different ideas, and, you know, Nick really not only is an expert on the platform that he represents, but also so many others.
I appreciate that. That's nice of you to say.
So effective from my perspective in what you do, and some of what I do. I frankly try to pattern after you. You know, I have some good news at this end. I think there might be an opportunity for folks to see me if I log out and log back in with a new ID. Would that be permissible? How would you like to proceed, Nick?
You can give it a try, and I'll keep running with this if that's what you'd like to do.
Why not? Because then people know I'm Dan Sandman, even though I'm honored to be considered Nabil during the course of this conversation. So 10 seconds, if it doesn't work, I'll come back.
I'm not going to say who makes the other one look better. I'm just gonna
certainly appreciate everyone's understanding. And Nick, you roll for a few moments and I'll be right back. Okay.
All right. Sounds good. So while Dan's trying to get back in here, this is another way that you can, and I'm going to get into content on Experts.com because I think it's important I see a whole bunch of our members in here. So original written content, and I think several of you are very well aware of it. But just take a look at this, and I promise you I don't have tons of slides today. I have a total of 3. One is our contact information. But here on content creation, you can see these are 2 articles on Experts.com that when I put this slide together, these Google searches, these articles were number 1 out of tens of millions of results. Both of these searches were Google. The USPS certified mail. We have this this expert has several articles on. One of them is the most impressive article being seen so many times, because even the US Post Office doesn't understand the difference between some of their products. And the other one, applied linguistics. And you see the Google search there, meaning of steel, linguistics expert. So we try and do a search here that is notable, a search that somebody would likely do in searching for that, and that article on Google when I did this, and you may get some different results if you try that today. It changes by location, it changes by date, but still very high performing article for our premium members. This is really great way to drive home your thought leadership, your knowledge, your expertise, and you're giving attorneys something that they are probably needing to learn about your expertise before they hire you. I'm going to stop the share there because it looks like Dan is raising his hand, and I am going to allow him to talk.
You can, I think, you can hear me talk, but if there's a way they can see me, you're gonna have to do that at your end, but.
Okay.
That's one of those Zoom days.
I'm promoting you to a panelist. You're
Oh.
probably not in as
Oh,
a
I see.
panelist here, so then you will be there. So that is the content creation, at least on our platform, hugely beneficial to you. I recommend it. I was just saying to Dan that he should recommend it. Dan, I showed a slide. You don't need to see it, because our next item that we're running into here is really newsletters as a content creation idea.
Well, can everyone see and hear me? And
we see you, we hear you.
Great. Well, terrific. And yeah, I appreciate your working with me, Nick, to get my technical situation figured out here. So thank you so much. So, newsletters are great. It's to sort of relate it back to sort of the more concept. I mean, it's outreach, it's engagement, it's building relationships that can hopefully be relationships of value and ultimately be monetized over time and in a positive way for both sides. So I think it's a great way, frankly, just to keep in touch. Really, it's a great way to update people with the latest and greatest and expertise that someone's accomplished in their area of specialization. Results are so important, and if you don't tell anyone about it, they're not know.
They don't know.
Yeah, so it's great to be developing that database that you can reach out to, that of course all of them I'm sure will have opted into utilizing utilizing their email address. Of course, it's a whole nother subject, but results are so powerful, and to be able to communicate to clients, potential clients, the results that you've had in the work that you've done make a huge difference. I mean, that's going to pop antennas. That's going to get people interested in the work that you're doing.
And there are a variety of relatively inexpensive or free newsletter platforms you can use today. But I think that the goal here is as Dan mentioned, many of you are members of Experts.com, and you get our newsletters. You got our emails for this webinar. You get our newsletters monthly. The idea here is we're telling you what's going on. So this is the idea you should use for your legal clients. And if you have industry clients, you want to keep them up to date. But the newsletter, even monthly, even where you just curate a little bit of, some notable news stories for your industry, you get to show up in their inbox once a month. You stay in top of mind for these people who have used you in the past or who you want to use you in the future. You can even make it an opt-in newsletter, so you get approval to use their email address. You'll want to ask past lawyers if you can put them on your newsletter. Just a really great way to stay in touch.
Yeah, I mean, top of mind, out of sight, out of mind. And, it's that soft outreach by keeping your firm, your business top of mind of the folks who are receiving what you're sending. If you don't ask for it, whether directly or indirectly by sort of educating people or what have you, and by it we mean business or opportunities, they're not going to come your way. And I think a lot of, not to the volume that you'd like at least, and I think a lot of folks who are working in the expert space are afraid to ask for the business, so they don't know how to. And that's why, you know, over the years and working in different avenues of business development, I've sort of tried to break it down to, hey, you got to be doing quote unquote more. And what does that mean? And I think newsletters, as you said, you know, one of the easiest ways to do it is to sort of put together some news articles of interest and send that out. I remember years ago when I was working for an entertainment company, I had to get permission to use links and this and that and everything else. And now everyone just, they want you to do it. They want to send it out. And by being a trusted resource or promoting yourself as a thought leader, by being top of mind, those are the types of things that are going to lead to opportunities and to additional business for folks in the expert witness space.
And I've heard it over and over, Dan, in my years doing this, but I already have a relationship with that firm or that company, so I don't know why they were looking for me on Experts.com, because they don't remember, right? They went to the search immediately because they don't recall the existing relationship, or maybe it's somebody else in the organization. So you know, the newsletter can help keep you at the top of mind.
Well, I mean, that's relationships, right?
That's the relationship.
You know, and the relationship's got to be more than the engagement that you are part of for the course of a few weeks to a year, or even sometimes years.
Right.
Now, legal lawyers' careers can go 30, 40, 50, 60 years. And so, frankly, so can expert witnesses.
Yeah.
So the fact that you work with somebody in 1997 or 2007, and you're the perfect expert for a case in, you know, 2017, and you haven't done anything to sort of nurture the relationship over time, just, you know, even the most basic sort of check-in, they may forget. And then that relationship really doesn't exist anymore. So it's so important to utilize the tools that are out there, the media, you know, that could be you as an individual, that could be different marketing platforms. It, you know, could be an email newsletter we've sort of been talking about right now.
Yep. And then I think the last thing on this, and I know we need to get going to the platforms, but be prepared. Talk with your lawyer, hire somebody like Dan, but be prepared for how to handle questions like that they'll use. Look, they're always going to try and impeach you, so stop being afraid of that. Like, that's part of opposing counsel's job. But think about how you answer that question of, you created your thought leadership piece, and think about how you could say, well, you know, in that piece, I was using a hypothetical. That's different from the facts in the case that we're talking about at deposition, or the facts are different, the issues are different. Get comfortable with how you explain it instead of being in fear of publishing.
This is so true. And, you know, we talked about this a little bit a few moments ago, and certainly when we were discussing this topic in preparation of the webinar, there is always going to be something that an expert is going to be cross-examined on, and opposing counsel is going to attempt to impeach them with. Always. You could be Mother Teresa. You could be Mother Teresa and have sterling reputation and literally be a saint, and the opposing counsel is going to do whatever they want to do to try and attack your methodology, attack a publication, attack your credibility because of XYZ perceived reason. They're always going to do it. So you got to be prepared. And if you think it's the marketing or business development efforts that you've been utilizing that are really going to expose you and worry you, you know, if you're not out there, you're not out there. And you just have to be prepared for it and know how to handle it. Not be afraid. Because there's always going to be something out there that a lawyer, whether they're the greatest lawyer in the world or just out of law school, they know how to impeach, and it's almost always the same types of areas that they're looking into doing.
And we're going to get to one of those actually when we talk about the brokers and probably the marketing platforms in just a second. So
Sure.
we'll talk about a couple of these, but So another way that you should be marketing your expertise in addition to content creation is marketing platforms. Now, when I say that, I'm talking certainly about experts.com. We're doing the webinar. We want you to be members with us. That's one. I definitely agree. Let's see. I also want to say, because people will ask me, so I'm just going to lead with it. I respect JurisPro and Seek Experts in this space. They offer a similar service. They're good, respectable companies. I want you to know, I want to identify my biases, who I'm speaking with here, or who I'm speaking for here. But yes, good companies. Advertising takes time, Dan. It's not, I'm sorry, with the marketing platforms, attorneys will also look for the usual suspects. I want to say that, right? If you're on one, maybe I go over to one of these other trusted and I see them there, and okay, it's usual suspects. This is probably not a fly-by-night expert, not their first rodeo.
This is true. This is true.
But advertising takes time. And experts, I've had many. It's not uncommon for people to expect a result in 6 months or a year. And really I guess I want to get across that the average advertising spend for a small business, the rule is generally 2 to 5% of revenue. So if you're spending a couple $100 once a year, you probably got to do a little bit more. What are your thoughts, Dan?
You do, and look, I talked to a lot of people in this space, a lot of experts or folks who want to become experts, and someone said to me a few months ago, we were considering working together, hey, I want to make $1 million as an expert within the next 1 to 3 years. And I was thinking of charging a percentage of this individual's revenue as maybe my fee for being a consultant for them. But
right,
it really sort of resonated with me that that's probably not the majority of experts who are going to see that within 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Okay.
And just for perspective, I'm not sure that's the best thought process to come into the business with.
Right. I think that we can break down different experts, and certainly if you're the leading professor in accounting and the SEC rules in the world, and you end up doing a case with a major fraud, U.S. attorney, district court case, your fee could be massive, and that could be your first or second or third rodeo.
Yeah,
it could definitely be massive. But most experts are not working that way, where this is something that they do in addition to what their main practice has to be, if it's healthcare, or their main the job may be, if they're an accountant, they do some consulting on the side and trying to build that up. And so if you're thinking that marketing, you're going to put up a big billboard and then everyone's going to call you, whether it's a digital billboard or literal billboard, it's not going to happen right away. And I think that's why it's so important to be somewhat multifaceted in your approach, and be out there, again, as a thought leader, as we discussed, right. Utilize Experts.com or other types of listing platforms that are easy access for lawyers and are trusted by lawyers to get out there. And then once you're using those platforms, as Nick was so eloquently educating me the other day, that my Experts.com profile needs a little updating, a little sprucing up. Take advantage of what Experts and Seek or JurisPro or some of the others have built into those platforms to make you findable.
Yeah. Features. Use the features.
Yeah. Use the features. Use the features.
Yep. And I always come back to it takes a little money spend. We do a lot of hand holding in creating the profile. encouraging you to add articles in video. If you've got a membership that allows for articles and video, we will help you through that. We won't do the video for you, but we will remind you to take advantage of these features that we have. Because we want you to use them, because we know that they're valuable. It is hugely valuable for an attorney to see your face and hear how you sound in a video on your profile while they're looking for an expert. And also, if you've written that case study that is exactly the case, the exact same fact patterns, because that's what we learn in law school is fact patterns. And that's how an attorney thinks, is in fact patterns. And this is similar to this and what laws apply. So if you write some of those case studies that are fact patterns, that makes it easy for them to go, okay, here's somebody who gets it, who's had this issue. I'm bookmarking their article, or I'm bookmarking their profile, and I'm coming back to them when I need it. So we want you to use features. Additionally, at Experts, we want to present you as we're presenting you. Like we're presenting Dan Sandman, or we're presenting Aaron or Adam. We want to present you that way. So we actually will draft the profile for you. So it's not what I see on other profiles a lot of times. I am this type of expert. I did this. I did this. I did that. That doesn't look right. So take advantage of what we're offering and what other platforms offer. But that's sort of how we do it. Dan?
I just mentioned a couple things about case studies, and I think that that is a really great way to sort of highlight expertise and really get some results on search engines within certain platforms. I had a lot of success when I was working with AMFS and using case studies on our website. I can tell you that a lot of the folks who came to us sort of hit upon a case study that had been placed on the website, and it was terrific for SEO, just the way that website happened to be built. But I think that it truly resonates. It really does.
Yeah.
And if you're an expert, or you're a physician, or you're an accountant, or what have you, you're a software engineer, what have you, you've seen a million different scenarios that you can sort of write blurbs about and break it down. What the interesting pieces are. Folks say, hey, listen, Nick did XYZ. Oh, this guy's great. He has that experience. And it really resonates with lawyers and potential clients who are looking for a great expert.
I agree. I can't knock it. This I put up this content creation slide again because of case studies perform very well. These two examples are not necessary. One of them is a case study, I believe, but it is look, these are fact patterns that attorneys are looking at, and do something on your website that is individual to that site. Do some original content on experts.com. All of our links point back to your website anyway, so it is good for SEO purposes as well. But case studies are fantastic. They're hugely beneficial, and it expresses your personal expertise. Dan, we are going to hop into brokers.
All right.
AMFS is where you used to work. They are a member of Experts.com, a customer of ours. And we want to let these folks know a little bit about the differences of the brokers and the marketing platforms, and what our recommendations are for them.
Yeah, sure. I think, I did a talk with a group of legal nurse consultants a couple of weeks ago, and it was really interesting because a lot of them had not considered working with an organization like AMFS or other expert witness consulting firms, and really sort of turned a spotlight on the fact that they could actually be getting a lot of business by developing relationships with consulting firms. I think some of the differences, another term is brokers, as you referred to them, Nick, and between that and marketing platforms that we've just been talking about, like Seek and Experts.com and things like that, is that most of the networks that an organization like an expert witness consulting firm have are internal, okay?
Mhm.
They're internal networks that have been curated over a period of years, sometimes decades. Most of the experts have longstanding relationships with those firms. And if you are an expert who is able to forge a relationship with an expert witness consulting firm, it can provide a number of advantages from a marketing perspective. First of all, your expertise can be marketed in ways that really isn't going to cost you any money, because listing with those organizations.
Upfront money, though.
Yeah.
Upfront necessarily.
Exactly. Secondly, a lot of experts, we kind of talked about this, I think, in the last webinar, may not want to handle the business aspects of what they're doing, and firms that fully case manage expert witness engagements, consulting firms that fully case manage expert witness engagements, will do the billing for them. Okay.
Mhm.
There are some things to consider if you're doing that with an expert witness consulting firm, is that some firms will make their money by adding a margin on top of what an expert witness charges in order to make that billable more palatable to an attorney client. May ask the expert witness to bring their normal hourly rate down, or
So-
other firms.
So this is where I say, Dan, with the brokers versus the marketing platforms, this is where I say you may not pay that marketing membership fee up front, but you may be paying far more than that marketing membership fee if they're asking you to reduce your
Correct.
billable hour.
Correct. And, it costs the attorney some access to get the expert witness consulting firm to go to work for them, whether it's an engagement fee, whether it's what we just described. And so that's why I think it's important to consider just not being in one place, affiliate with an expert witness consulting firm that you feel that you can develop a relationship with, affiliate with an organization like Experts.com or some of the others, where attorneys can go for no charge to sort of look at the different listings. So that's really important, because you can be in a couple of different spots without really a big out of pocket. And if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, nurturing the relationship with the representative, the expert witness consulting firm, doing what needs to be done on a profile on experts.com or Seek or what have you, and taking advantage of all the features, you're going to be bringing more traffic, more business to you.
We call it casting the widest net possible, Dan.
Casting the widest net possible. That's right.
So we generally say that we want you to use us in a complementary fashion with other services, or with us with all of your other marketing efforts, including brokers. If that's working for you, don't get rid of it. There are some things to consider here that there are attorneys who don't want the middleman. They don't want to pay the markup.
Right.
That's one thing. So you have to be aware of what that markup is, because this will also can also come up in deposition. They may be asking, how much are you getting paid for this? And you may not know exactly the number that you're getting paid on that. You have to be aware of how much that markup is. And if such and such law firm was willing to pay that 30 or 50% markup, maybe you're underbilling yourself to begin with, right? So maybe you have to think about raising your rates.
Yeah, there's a lot that can be learned from all of this. And, again, there's different types of expert witness consulting firms. Some attorneys will just pay the firm for the match, and then the contracting is directly between the expert witness and the law firm, and the middleman gets out of the way. Other setups, such as a fully case managed expert witness consulting firm like AMFS that I work with, will have a case manager who handles things throughout, and the agreement is ultimately with the expert witness consulting firm. And one of the things that does come up, and may come up probably less so than it did maybe 5 or 10 or 15 years ago, was, as you said, what are you being paid, and how much is the markup, and these types of questions at deposition. And the way I've seen some of the really experienced lawyers, because the lawyers who retain experts in this manner need to be prepared, and experts handle it to say, look, which is just the fact, they're taking a fee for the back office administration of the work that they do.
Right.
And that is, you know, fairly, you know, understandable to folks that they need to do that. They're administrating the engagement,
Sure.
handling the billing, and there's a fee for that, and that's built into what's ultimately being charged. So
Sure. And I do, and there should be
probably been the best approach.
Yeah, and we want you to use these systems complementary to each other. Whatever is bringing work in for you as an expert, that is your focus.
Right.
You do want to also, last item on the broker issue is beware of of any contractual restrictions on future engagements. Sometimes you can then, after this engagement's over, you can have that continuing interaction with the attorney. Sometimes I think there are limitations on any future use of you by that attorney has to go through the broker. So I think they need to be aware of those contractual limitations.
Right. And just a few points on that, Nick. What usually happens is in most cases where an expert witness consulting firm case manages an opportunity and an engagement, there almost always is a clause that future work from that firm, you know, has to be run through the consulting firm. Okay. I have almost always seen that. I have never seen an expert witness consulting firm go after someone for going around that. And I'm not suggesting that he just breached a contract. I'm saying the realities of what often happens is that expert A is engaged in 2015 through Dan Sandman's consulting firm, and let's say I have a clause that says any further, you know, opportunities with the firm I introduced you to has to come through me. And then 10 years later, they don't remember the firm, but they remember this terrific expert, Nick, that they got. Like, right. Oh, let's find Nick, and they find it on the website, and that's what happens. So there's a lot of nuance there, but it is something to be aware of, because you speak for how every expert consulting firm is going to handle that. And depending upon the value of an opportunity is going to really dictate whether a firm would take action against a law firm, against an expert for sort of circumventing that. So if you sign a contract, stick to it, but understand what you're getting yourself into potentially.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Good. And then we get into Dan's favorite, where he spends a heck of a lot of time and where I get Friday night and Saturday morning messages from him. We're going to go into LinkedIn, which is, I'm on a lot of social channels. Dan can attest to this. You don't have to be on all of them, but there is value to being seen on several of them and getting your thought leadership out there on several of them. The one most experts and most attorneys and everybody are comfortable with is LinkedIn, because that's where you're doing the most professional stuff. Now, some of you are are well aware of the Experts.com files that I put out in video, where I go over one of our
major motion picture. I might add.
What's that?
Soon to be a major motion picture.
Soon to be a major motion picture, for sure. So some of you will see videos like that I put out on my LinkedIn and Experts LinkedIn. I'm not saying that you have to do those. They're a little bit more fun. They're a little bit more light. LinkedIn is where folks are mostly expecting business posts and professional related posts and professional information. So some people are just more comfortable there. I think I looked at LinkedIn as a twofold social networking for this particular group, for experts. It is for the networking and it's for content creation. Those are the two big things I think that LinkedIn does. I think you have to, many of our members have a link to their LinkedIn profile in addition to a link to their website on ours. I think it's another place for attorneys to find you and learn a little bit more about you. I think it's valuable to them both ways. I think you don't want to just count on a LinkedIn profile, because the difference between LinkedIn and marketing platforms is that LinkedIn lets everybody in. So people get a little hesitant to see such and such expert. When you're self-proclaiming expert, there's a lot of those on LinkedIn. And so it devalues some of our members who are here today, our visitors who are here today, your honest to goodness expertise, but it's still a valuable platform. Dan, your thoughts on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn's a pretty powerful place to be, and as you said, cast a wide net, and this is one of the places where you need to be inside the net, so to speak. Just to talk about when I started my business, the first place I went were some of the platforms that we've discussed here and LinkedIn, and I think that LinkedIn I already sort of had some familiarity with and had a presence, and I was able to sort of boost the presence on LinkedIn and get some pretty immediate feedback. So I think LinkedIn has become a lot more complicated, or maybe the word is multifaceted in its approach and the features that it offers. And you got to be there. You got to have a profile, at least so folks can find you. You've got to make sure you have the proper keywords, inscribing your profile, fill out your profile completely. And people will find experts through LinkedIn. I mean, they just do. And there's a lot of people also who are trying to be experts who have found LinkedIn as a great place to become social media, self-promoters and things like that. Nick, you probably know the term I'm looking for.
Yeah, trying to be an influencer.
Yeah, influencer. That's the word I was looking for. And I think, as an expert, you got to be careful with that.
Yeah.
Expert, there's a fine line, and we can talk about this, between where marketing and business development exist and where you start getting into becoming a influencer. And a lot of this is happening on LinkedIn. And I think that some of the posts that I have seen, hey, they can generate great business and interest and things like that. But I know from my experience of 20 years as an attorney and also as working in the expert witness space for over a decade now, they're going to create a lot of problems for those who frankly are just self-promoting to the influencer point.
Yeah. I will say this.
For impeachment is incredible. So.
Yeah, and I've seen some stuff that I would not want for you. So I'll say this. Get involved in conversations with your ideal legal customers. Lawyers are out there. They're looking for conversations.
Absolutely.
They're making posts. Comment on their posts. It helps their posts get seen more. You do it frequently. They start engaging with you. Don't be afraid to provide insights based on your expertise. Maybe create a weekly post tying your expertise to relevant news stories or something like that. I'll do that on occasion. In fact, we're doing a piece probably next week where we're putting out a blog post that's connected with a new Netflix documentary that's coming out. That's called Newsjacking. We learned about this documentary a couple of weeks ago. It's relevant, litigation related. So we're doing a blog post about that. You can do the same thing on LinkedIn. They call that newsjacking. I recommend looking it up. Not for every post, but it is helpful. But then interact with your colleagues in your area of expertise. And what I recommend for this is promote others. Do a post about a colleague who's doing some great work, or a lawyer you worked with who was an absolute pleasure to work with, and stroke their ego a little bit. People like that. It can be friendly, it can be professional and cordial, and that helps people. It helps you stick in their mind when they're looking to contact you later. And I always be polite. Don't get into a battle with people on social media. Reply once. If they're still a jerk, don't reply a second time. So you take the high road.
Into it. You don't want to feed into it, right?
Don't feed into it. Don't feed into it. I think there was one other item there. Oh, at that point, maybe ask them to jump into the DMs because sometimes they're making a point and they're just not very personable. But maybe ask them, maybe we can discuss this more in the DM. And if it's a lawyer, that's where you get to work to close them. So it is really networking and content creation. I think they're both valuable.
Yeah, and I think there's one other thing I'd just like to add, Nick, is that there's some value in considering a consultant if you feel that your particular business model or area of expertise would work well from really sort of making a bigger investment in LinkedIn than just having your own profile and really understanding the difference between a page and a profile and all that thing. And there are ways to sort of boost your outreach through LinkedIn, whether it's through Sales Navigator, which is their own platform, or through outside agencies that are really, really good.
And they have a creator platform now, and you can make newsletters and have people subscribe to that. The thing I don't know about the LinkedIn newsletter is I don't know if you get to I think people just connect with their profile and you don't get the email. And I promise you this, you want the email. Dan, we've got 35 minutes left. Our next is in-person networking. We've talked about this some with social networking or with LinkedIn. I think we be real quick here and then start jumping into the Q&A.
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget that we're talking about a lot of tech here and
digital marketing. A lot of digital marketing
and things like that. And you got to be doing it in some way, shape, or form. But the old handshake goes a long way. And sometimes the in-person thing, now that we're, past COVID, it's what's old is new again, right? And I think there's a lot of excitement around going to conferences, getting your experience highlighted at conferences and networking at conferences. And I know I'm going to be doing one in October that I'm pretty excited about in Chicago. And, you can really get tremendous mileage in terms of being out there. You are your own medium, so to speak, and outreaching directly to people face to face.
Yep.
Up on the dais or whether it's networking at a cocktail hour or what have you. You're developing those relationships that you can nurture over in time, and hopefully you're engaging with people in a way that is meaningful. The in-person thing it just can't be forgotten, and sometimes it's really tough to fit it into a schedule. And so if it's something you may be able to do once a quarter, once a year, depending upon the size of the conference, what have you, it's something you can't forget about. There's trial lawyer associations, Defense Research Institute groups, and everything else in between. And they're all looking for speakers and having events and things like that. So they're easy to find usually what the chapters are, and you reach out to the person who's running it and say, hey, I'd love to provide this insight or be a speaker on a panel or what have you. And it really pays dividends because
it does
leadership, build relationships, and get your name out there in a very tangible way.
Think about everything we just discussed in the LinkedIn. You're putting those items, that networking and that content creation, because speaking at a conference, you're still creating that content to be spoken at the conference. And you're just doing what we talked about on LinkedIn and on Experts.com, et cetera. You're just doing that in person. Conferences about your expertise are good, but remember, for your expert practice, you want to know where the fish are at, and that's at the legal conferences. So you don't want to always go to where your colleagues are at. You want to be the only biomechanical engineer at the local bar association or at the state bar association conference. Speaking at legal conferences, speak at the bar association events, offer webinars to lawyers and law firms. These things are helpful. This is the toxic tort and construction defect people are pretty good with this. They've gotten used to talking to this really specific construction defect bar or the toxic tort bar, but there are for all areas of expertise. So and I think the goal here, look, we go to conferences at Experts.com. Next month, I'm going to the California Lawyers Association National Conference. Making these relationships results oftentimes in, okay, well, now I've got this relationship with a really big legal organization that I'm hoping delivers more searches, more search requests and expert requests to my experts, as Dan is doing for in Chicago. This is the goal, but you can also do this, and I recommend it because you can build a relationship. Take it a full 180 here, Dan, or a full 360 back to your acronym MORE. This is relationships equaling revenue, and that's what you want to go for.
There's no question about it. There's no question about it. And, you just can't be afraid to put yourself out there. And there are some folks who are terrific on the stand and terrific in writing reports and get a little nervous when it comes to, going to certain events and things like that. But once you do it, you sort of get into a swing of things and you'll see that it's really, really beneficial.
And take a friend with you, take somebody, a colleague that you're comfortable with, and then you feel a little bit of support at those things. Anyway, Dan, I want us to get into the Q&A. We're about an hour in, and we've got over 150 people here. So we are going to start with, speak to the importance of making cold calls to firms in your local area. How to go about this process, short versus long pitch. Most attorneys don't answer the phone. How do I figure out whom to present my info to? So for this question, you notice that we didn't talk about cold calls in this presentation at all. Salespeople are cold calling me all the time, trying to sell me the newest tech. But I don't think that this works for the type of relationship you're looking to build with an attorney. And you just said it yourself in this question. Most attorneys don't answer their phones, or you're stuck with a gatekeeper. And I just don't think it is the most efficient use of your time.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you're just doing straight cold calling to firms, you're going to be wasting a lot of time. And I think there's a way to sort of direct this to something more productive, because if you have sort of the chutzpah, if you will, to be making those cold calls, and you seem like a person who isn't afraid to be out there, and it's great. And so why not sort of make it more of a warm call, if you will, if we could use that phrase. And if, let's say, you're cold calling a trial lawyer, there's a better way to do that. Find the Trial Lawyer Association in that area. Go to the website for the Trial Lawyer Association, send an email to a board member or administrator and say, hey, I'm John Smith. I'm an engineer. I am doing presentations. I would love to, find a way to create a synergy. You do that with enough of them, you're going to find an opportunity to present a webinar. You're going to find an opportunity to get your name on a listserv. I mean, these are things you can do that are better than just a flat out cold call, getting from the receptionist to the paralegal to the secretary and everything else.
And you don't have, most experts don't have what is needed for true cold calling. You've got hundreds of potential leads, and you're blasting through them. You don't have that kind of time. It's not the best use of your time. If you think about what your billable hour is, it's not worth your time. Let's see. Somebody asks about a particular time slip software. I don't know what to say about that. The question is not fantastic. I don't know about the software. If you could elaborate, we can maybe try and answer that. Next is, 1/3 of my new clients come from attorney referrals. Excellent. There's nothing better than word of mouth referral. How can I bolster this? Another 1/3 comes from general Google internet searches. They comment and they find me on multiple sites, also California Law Review, even though I work nationally. Yeah. How do you bolster that? I think put to use some of the things that we said here today, work in your LinkedIn, go to the in-person networking where you are comfortable. Maybe it's a national trial lawyers meeting. And think about doing that newsletter. Certainly advertising on experts.com is a national directory, a national platform. So I recommend that. They're looking from everywhere, but think about doing that newsletter and getting your eyeballs and getting your name in front of those attorneys who are sending you the 1/3 of the new renewals to you to do it more frequently. You're staying top of mind with them, and the other third comes from general Google internet searches. That's 70% of your business right there. You're definitely finding. But I like in this question what you mentioned is California Law Review, and I wonder, did you publish content in California Law Review, and is it that content that's working for you, or are you advertising there? Dan, thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And, I'm just going to kind of focus on this aspect of it. 1/3 of my new clients come from attorney referrals. How can I bolster this? Well, that's really awesome. Okay. And these guys are like your evangelists. And this, just popped into mind. You want to bolster how many referrals you're getting from attorneys? Get that 1/3, okay, that group that makes up the 1/3. Publicize that you're going to have a lunch and learn webinar, something like that. Ask that the attorney invite one colleague from their own firm or someone else. I will guarantee you that your ratio will change, and you'll start seeing possibly even more referrals coming from attorneys and new clients coming from attorney referrals.
Yeah.
You got traction there, engage with it, lock it down, and it will pay dividends.
Yeah. And I hit them. I would hit them with, okay, so you met them at the Lunch and Learn or at the local bar association or the national conference. You've collected the credit, not the credit cards. You've collected the business cards with those emails, and you ask them when you do it, hey, do you mind if I put you on my newsletter email list? And boom, there you go. You are already communicating with these. So you've done the in-person. Now you're doing the digital follow-up in addition to where you're marketing your services. Joseph asks, do you have a checklist plan for a basic plan that I can execute? My answer to this is no, I don't. What I would recommend is kind of what we talked about here today: content creation, content marketing, marketing platforms, add the brokers complementary to that, LinkedIn, and in person. That's the most basic that I can give you. That should also come with your own website. We haven't talked about it. I don't do a checklist here, Joseph, because marketing changes. What's working today on LinkedIn or on certain ad or certain ad revenue, AdWords, excuse me, they don't always work the next time. So that's my basic. Start creating content that you put on Experts.com, you put on LinkedIn, you put on your own website, be on Experts.com and or other sites, complement it with the brokers.
Yeah.
Get yourself on LinkedIn.
Question. I'm sorry.
What's that?
Sorry.
Say that again.
You cut out there for a second and didn't mean to interrupt, but Joseph, I think, asked a good question. And I do work, and there are others out there who will work with expert witnesses directly in creating a plan for marketing.
Oh, good. Perfect.
I do that through my Sandman Consulting organization, and I just provide consulting services. It's separate from my legal practice, consulting services to help experts grow their business. So, Joseph, please reach out to me, and I'll be happy to talk to you about how we might be able to work together.
Yeah, and Joseph, come back to it. We'll send you this video as well in the replay, and you'll hear us kind of go through those items again. Next question is JP. I go to conferences in my field. Should I be going to legal conferences? Yes, I think so. So we rushed through the in-person networking there, JP. My thought is if you can be, and I don't know your area of expertise, so I'm going to just say insurance. If you can be the top insurance expert at the local or state bar association annual meeting, you're one of the you're one of the few insurance experts at that or at the insurance adjusters meetings, things like that, where you stand out as the expert. You're with the insurance litigators at one of their events. And again, I'm just using that as an example. That is what I think you should be doing. Go to where the fish are, and the fish aren't in your field. They are the lawyers that you want to hire you.
Yeah, I agree. Look, there's a benefit to going to conferences with in your own expertise to stay on top of issues that are pertinent to your practice. But if you want to get business leads and forge relationships, you've got to go to legal conferences. And what does that mean, going to a legal conference? It could mean a lot of different things. It could be a small conference where you get to be up on the dais and you're giving a presentation and then answering questions afterwards. It could be a massive conference where you have a table in an exhibit hall and you're meeting attorneys as they come by the exhibit hall to collect keychains and pens. So it depends upon, what level of investment you want to make, both in time and money, and what conferences are the best fit for you. Is there a list of conferences? If you Google legal conferences 2023, 2024, I apologize, forgot the name of the organization that lists a lot of these things out there, but they are listed and you can research them and find out which would fit best with your particular practice.
And what fits best with your budget, because if you're in, because you may prefer to go to something, if you're on the West Coast, you may prefer to visit something in Chicago or Denver, as opposed to flying all the way to New York there are legal conferences literally all over the place. California Lawyers Association, a massive bar association. They're doing it in San Diego next month, their annual meeting. Let me get to this next question. Folks, we got about 20 minutes left, so get get that Q&A in here. Next person asks, they're a retired police officer and HR investigator, and they obtained their private investigator's license a couple of months ago. Do you think that will help my credibility as an expert witness? I don't know that it helps your credibility as an expert witness, but what it might do is get you in the door with more lawyers if you are doing some because I think you've probably got really great credibility from doing your job and retiring from your job, and I think that will be sufficient for your credibility. I think the investigative license shows that you're still active and familiar with investigations, and you may be able to meet more attorneys at conferences or at maybe they're looking for a private investigator, and if you are offering some PI services, you're opening yourself up to getting to know more attorneys. Dan, your thoughts?
I think you answered that question really well. I think, the fact that you have I think it's Aaron, is that right? Has the police officer, HR investigator, does the PI thing really enhance credibility? I think it makes you, more interesting, certainly, but, and it could enhance your credibility. But I think Nick made some good points. That it just depends what you're being called upon to be an expert witness in. So it really depends upon the context.
Excellent. David asks a great question, and I meant to answer this in another one. When you go to conferences, do you pay to be an exhibitor, or do you just walk around, or do you only go if you're speaking? So I think the best way for a small business person or an expert to do this, the way that I think is the most beneficial for us, unless in some cases I'm on an actual committee for like California Lawyers Association, I'm on one of the committees, so I'm not paying to go there. I'm not necessarily paying for an exhibit or anything like that. I'm on a committee. I think that's a very good return on your investment. I think the best way for you to perform, the best return on investment, and the ones that when we apply to speak, I think are the best returns on investment, because people see the person up there on the stage and they automatically think more authority. It happens in just about, it could be a room full of rocket scientists, and the rocket scientists in the chair will think that the person on the stage has some more authority. So there is something to that.
Yeah, I think it depends on the conference, right? I mean, some of the conferences have exhibit tables, others you can or sometimes can't walk around. And speaking is really key. And if you could do all three, that'd be great. Now I've done a lot of conferences, and I can tell you that location of that exhibitor table is so important. If it's not the right place, you may not get many people coming by. And if you don't have something eye-catching, whether
And it can be really expensive too.
yeah, it can be very expensive, but they can work. You just have to execute it well and know what you're doing. Just walking around, I've done that too. There was a decision made that, hey, this year we're not going to have a table. You know, we're just going to send Dan, and it didn't really work as well, just walking around. But I will tell you that if you're one of the speakers, it makes a big difference.
Makes a big difference. Speaking seems to be the best ROI. Panel speaking as well as individual speaking, I think both make a big difference. Good return. Also, if you can be as a non-lawyer, as they call them, if you could be on a committee, as a biomechanical engineer or mechanical engineer, if you can be on a committee, do it, because then you're engaging with other committee members who are probably lawyers. And usually it's not overly time consuming. So I don't think you should just walk around. I don't think that.
I don't like, if you want to collect pens and stuffed animals and bags and keychains, that's a great thing to do, but for your kids, your family, but just walking around, I don't think would be a good idea.
Yeah. Next question says, how important is having your own website? You notice that we didn't put the website in as a main topic today because we kind of expect you to have one. It's 2023. We kind of, it doesn't have to be the fanciest, most impressive website. You just want somewhere else for them to go. If they're on experts.com and they want to, okay, I want to go over and see what Dan does in his website, what his website does. It have more information. It is kind of a seller, it's a buyer journey looking into you. So you want to have that storefront. I think it doesn't have to be as complex as experts.com. It can be several pages. You just want to have somewhere for them to default to know that you're in business.
Right. I mean, a website can be just one slide, frankly, that, can give your contact information, and it can be much, much more. And again, I think it's probably not the best practice not to have a website of some kind. You need that presence.
You need it.
And might as well take the dive.
Yeah. This kind of goes back to my what I talked about earlier in the you have to have some ad spend, and the rules somewhere in the 2 to 5% of revenue range. So the website should be included in that. It does not have to be expensive. It should just look nice. Should just reinforce what they're finding out about you on experts.com, what they're finding out about you on LinkedIn. It's just keep them engaged, keep them aware that you are who you say you are. This, again, there is the thing about the fly-by-night expert or somebody self-proclaimed expert. If you have the website in addition to other things, you're less likely to be viewed as such.
No, this is true. I think that, again, not having a website in this day and age is just probably not the best setup.
Not the best. I agree. I agree. Uh, Katie asks, where would you recommend to find the market size biggest player for a particular area for an expert witness?
Hmm.
So I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but let me answer it with this. California, New York, Texas, Florida, Chicago.
You answered the question.
Yeah, those are the most populous states. They are the biggest litigated state, the most litigation in those states. Those are where probably 90%, if you're a North Dakota expert, probably 90% of your work is going to come from those states. Most experts' work is going to come from those states to a lesser degree, but still relevant. New Jersey, Colorado, Massachusetts, those places. But essentially, the biggest, most populous states are going to have the most litigation.
Yes, I think you answered that question very well.
All right. In addition to marketing efforts, Sean asks, do you think it is worthwhile using a paralegal service to search for cases in your area of expertise? Dan, you take this one. I know of members who have had paralegals working for them. The paralegal service is new to me.
There's a number of different ways to do this, and I'm going to make an assumption that then the expert is going to pitch the lawyer who just filed the case that they're available to be an expert, or you're going to market that lawyer because you see that lawyer Jones has filed 1,000 class actions that require B reads by radiologists, and that's what you do. Yeah, I mean, look, there isn't a wrong answer at the end of the day. If you know of someone that this has worked for and you think you'd like to give it a shot and it's reasonable, you're not going to lose anything by trying it. Okay. I don't know a lot of people who do this. I know, some who do, again, kind of using the example I gave about sort of bigger cases, and trying to identify who the players are. There's also different types of, legal platforms, research platforms. We can do the same kind of thing on your own. You don't have to hire a paralegal like Monitor Suite or something like that to find out who's filing what kind of cases and where and how many and what they're about. And then you can direct your marketing accordingly to, sort of going to the previous question, who the bigger fish is in a particular market. So it's not worth doing, but I don't know that it's going to be your biggest bang for the buck. Again, it could be different depending upon what your specific area of expertise is. It could work great for someone who's a B reader and not so well for someone who's an accountant.
Right. I think that's good. I think that summed it up. How do you advertise a lunch and learn webinar to get attorneys to notice its offering? And would you consider this a free webinar? And I'll give a quick answer, Dan, but I think Nabil eliminated or somebody eliminated the question before I could reread it. Usually the Bar Association or whomever is giving it is going to do the advertising for you. That they've got the mailing list, they've got the people who may want to attend. I think you should do it for free because you want to get your face in front of them. So don't think about getting paid through the webinar. Think about hopefully you're building the relationships which will equal revenue. Dan?
Yeah, I agree. I used the webinar as something that people can easily access. You don't want a barrier to it. You just want them to be able to access it easily without any, sort of hoops to jump through. And I think that's really the best approach.
Excellent. I get Google alerts that tell me about newly filed lawsuits that might have issues relevant to my expertise. I've tried reaching out to the lawyers involved, generally by email, but only once got a client that way. Should I try a phone call? Any other suggestions? I think this is a tough one. This direct approach, much like the first question Well, go ahead, Dan. I think I'm dominating the conversation here.
That's
You answer
okay.
this.
You're the host with the most, so it's all good. So, um, look, I would not do this. What a lot of expert witnesses may not understand is in almost every case where an expert witness is needed, they kind of know who they're gonna be looking for anyway, and may have already retained an expert or a consultant, and sort of call out of nowhere and say, hey, I saw you file XYZ case, I'm Dr. Smith, I'd like it, or hey, I see you filed a fraud case, I'm a forensic accountant, I'd love to be involved. I think that you kind of a day late and a dollar short in most situations, given this example.
Yeah.
I think a better approach may be to sort of see who are the lawyers filing these types of suits, and hopefully come up with a creative way to have them think of you before they file the next one, so that you can help evaluate the case, help them guide them, help them determine whether the case has merit or not in order to be filed. That's just my 2 cents.
I think that's good. I think that's good. And I also think that the phone call and the direct email to an individual attorney, it's a little like that cold call aspect. It may get lost in translation. This one asks, and I appreciate this question, Margaret. I don't maintain a website. I use experts.com as my go-to website. I don't have the expertise or time to do that. It's not uncommon, although we do recommend a website. Every one of our members, Dan included, have a custom URL that goes directly to their profile. So if you are using that, you can share that direct link with somebody if you're using it as your default. But certainly, we do recommend the website as mentioned.
Yeah, and I think, look, the beauty of experts.com and some of the others in the space is that if you really make that your platform, and there's tremendous value that can come out of it. As Nick said, the folks at Experts believe it's best to have your own website as well. But if this is what you can kind of work with and you're getting value out of it, more power to you. It's great news.
Yep. So Gail asks, can you also help a company that provides surveys for expert witnesses? We have deep experience having done 200 projects in IP litigation. Gail, I need to know more information about that. It sounds like you're offering a litigation support type of service, that kind of market research. And experts can, yes, help market your company in that way. If that's what your question is. Dan, how do you read that question?
I'm just, my apologies, Gail. I'm not completely understanding the question. I'm just not able to come up with an answer. I think it would be helpful.
Yeah.
Email me offline and with some more detail. I'd be happy to get right back to you.
Okay. Mark asked this great question. I don't know if I have a great answer, but examples of content impeachment gone bad, so we can see examples of how not to do it. So I think, Mark, the one that I remember the best was, they take out your article and they try and force you into why the case that you're being deposed about is exactly the same as that in your article. That's the one that I would say, well, that's why I say in my examples, well, wait, you're using a hypothetical that I used in that article for marketing purposes. And you're saying that that's the exact same as this, but the facts are different, and here's why. Dan?
I think that's a good answer. And another one is you come up with a piece of content that's just wrong. Maybe you used a marketing company that helped you devise a piece of content that they told you would be really interesting and catchy and attorneys would respond to and that sort of thing. And at the end of the day, you put your name to it, but it's really just not right, or it can be misconstrued in a way that comes back to bite you. So I've actually seen that happen. So
yeah, careful with
out there.
Careful with not doing it yourself. Yeah, very careful with that.
Will you prioritize?
Prioritize your business development techniques. Go ahead, Dan.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said Dan, you take this.
Yeah, I did. Go for it.
You prioritize your business development techniques. You've mentioned several. Well, I think we've talked about a number of different avenues by which to go down. I think, one of the most important things in terms of business development and marketing, you got to come up with a plan. Okay. You got to come up with a plan. It's very important to come up with a plan and then utilize the techniques, whether it's content, whether it's getting the most out of LinkedIn, whether it's attending conferences, what have you. You want to have a plan of attack so that it's an organized, cogent, effective, measurable ROI type of effort. And that's how you're going to know whether what you're doing is getting results. Just doing things sort of willy-nilly. I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that. Whatever you're doing within the marketing or business development space, have a goal. Okay. Have a goal and then have a plan to get to that goal.
And some commitment to it as well.
Commitment to it. You got to put some money and time behind it, bring in consultants if you need to, but make sure that you understand what's being done and why. Okay. So that you have control each step of the way along the journey that plan takes you on, and you ultimately get to your goal. So that's how I understand that question. If I'm missing,
that's how I understand it. I think that's great. We have time for one more question, folks. We're going to close it at 12:30. Sorry, we're not going to get to every answer or every question. But I think this is a good one because we covered this, Dan. What about sending reminder letters to attorneys firms that used you in the past and like the results?
I would say, yeah, do it. Make it a newsletter. Here's the latest and greatest. We added this consultant. We added that consultant. We handled an IP case in this. Bring them up to speed. Bring them up to date. Hey, it was great working with you in the Jones versus Smith case. If you have any other cases like that, love the opportunity to connect. There's no harm in doing it. If you don't do it, you will not get the business. Okay, you've got to commit to something.
Yep. And I think my addition to that, reminder letters, if you're mailing those as mailers, that's one way. I just call that a newsletter today because I'm used to not mailing things. I certainly, either way, that I think both are effective. I think the newsletter is more effective. I think I think getting it in an attorney's inbox is probably of primary importance.
Get more bang for your buck that way, but don't forget the power of the pen, the handwritten note.
Handwritten note is huge. Well, Dan, I think we nailed as much as we can for 90 minutes. I thank you, sir, for showing up and doing this again.
Yeah, glad we got everything figured out. Really appreciate the opportunity to be a guest here with you today, Nick, and certainly wish you all the best, and hope we can do this again down the road.
I'm sure we will. Folks, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. We will send this to you via email, the replay. You'll get that shortly. So thanks again. Have a great day.
Great day.
Bye-bye.